Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Old Time Rock and Roll. I'm your host, David Tear, where I profile different rock and roll artists every day whose birthday it is today. Today is December 9th, 2023, and today is the birthday of this woman here. Her name was Shirley Brickley. She was born on this day in 1944. Unfortunately, she died very young. She died at age 32 in 1977. I'll get to that later. But you may not know her by name, but she was one of the singers of this very popular girl group from the early 60s known as the Orlons, who originally consisted of Rosetta Highwater, Shirley Brickley, Marlene Davis, and the guy second from the left is Stephen Caldwell. All of them are dead except Stephen Caldwell, unfortunately. But the group is still around. They just have all different members now. Um, but like I said, they were a big girl group from the early 60s. They actually started in the late 50s when they were in junior high school. They included, I guess, Rosetta Highwater, Marlene Davis, and Shirley, and two of her sisters. There were actually three Brickleys in the band, but Shirley's the only one who remained with them. And They didn't really take off as a group until 1962. That's when they became the Orlons, and they started actually the first single wasn't theirs. It was for this woman here, Dee Dee Sharp, and she had a couple big hits. Her biggest hit was called "Mashed Potato Time." There were a lot of big, popular teen dances in the early '60s. I guess the mashed potato was one of them, and Dee Dee Sharp had a big hit, kind of introducing the mashed potatoes called Mashed Potato Time. She even had a follow-up single called Gravy for My Mashed Potatoes. And I think those were her two only really big hits. But then the Orlons made it on their own shortly afterwards. Their first big hit, was called the Wah Watusi. I guess the Watusi was another big hit from that time. Dance crazes were pretty popular in the early 60s. I think the biggest one was the twist. And I actually heard that there was one week, I think early in 1962, when there were seven songs in the top 40, all about the twist. I don't remember what all of them were, but I mean, just kind of give you an idea how popular dance crazes were at that time. So I guess the Orlons kind of capitalized on the dance craze. I guess Dee Dee Sharp started with a mashed potato time, and then the Wat Watusi was a follow up by the Orlons. And then they had another big hit in '62 called Don't Hang Up. Um, another good girl group song. And their only other big hit was this one called South Street. And this is actually about a real street in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I've never been there, but I guess it was kind of a hip place. I mean, they talk about where do all the hippies meet, and I think hippies kind of had a different meaning in the early '60s than the late '60s. I mean, we think of hippies from the late '60s as the demonstrators against Vietnam. Vietnam wasn't even really going on at this time, but I guess at that time the hippies were sort of like the beatniks. They were just these kind of cool cats on the street who were kind of into good music, and so anyway, they mentioned them in the song. But um, anyway, those were their only big hits, and unfortunately, like I said at the beginning of this video, Shirley Brickley died very young, and it was a tragic death. She was murdered. She was murdered by a burglar who broke into her house in 1977 when she was only 32 years old. And I think she even had kids at the time. I think now she has a granddaughter, and I saw a little what do you call it? Post on the web by her granddaughter talking about her. Like, I think it's very sad because I think very people even knew Shirley Brickley by name. She was just one of the members of the Orlons, and the only other person I can think of that had such a tragic death like this so young, it was kind of a similar kind of death or similar kind of background was Florence Ballard of the Supremes. And, I mean, with Florence Ballard, it was, I think, even more tragic because I think she committed suicide. I mean, her story, I don't want to get into that in too much detail, but, she ended up on welfare. after she left the Supremes. Diana Ross kind of stole the show with the Supremes, and everybody forgot about Florence Ballard, and she ended up on welfare, and shortly after that, killing herself. But I mean, Shirley Brickley, she was murdered, and people don't even really know about that because I think most people didn't even know who she was. But very tragic death. But I think the Orlons was a very good girl group, and it is a very sad loss. But that's my profile on Shirley Brickley. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.